Alright, proceeding with the fancy Carve experiment. There's a couple of things that I want to do just looking at this and noting how delicate the whole thing is. I want to first patch up those breaks with some hot glue. I want to throw some wire bracing behind any area that I'm worried is going to have way too much wobble. And also I want to seal all the edges of this entire cutout face. I'm thinking with a layer of Elmer's glue, just to make sure that these guys are not coming apart. There's not going to be any fanning out of that packed paper. So I'm going to do that first, because I'm waiting for my hot glue gun to warm up, and I figure what the hell. Why Elmer's glue? Because I have it right here. I figure it'll do just as good a job as anything. I think hot glue will leave me pissed off and covered in a zillion little plasticky strands, so this should work just as well as anything. It should seal up all of the edges, stop them from fanning out, and if there's any area where they already have started fanning out, hopefully I can get it in and act as kind of a gap filler so that future waterproofing and sealing steps are more effective. It might be that this step is entirely irrelevant and unnecessary, but it doesn't feel so at the moment. The counter is there's some edges I don't want gummed up with glue, so I'm going to have to be really careful to make sure I pull as much off of those edges as possible. I just realized that I had one up at the junction of the top here that's making a glue gap where it wants to fill in. I sense this is going to be a long, laborious process, so I'm going to kill the film, do this, and then tell you I did it when we come back. I'm back to the fancy Carve experiment. All the glue around the entire edge has been done, and I honestly think that was a very, very, very good idea. These edges just are more secure now. Because I still have a lot of these wibbly-wobbly bits, and I've got some areas here that are what I consider to be practically dangerously thin. I want to try to reinforce them with some wire. And we'll see if this works in the grand design here. So, this is, I believe, 18 gauge galvanized wire. Why am I using this? Because I had it around. All I'm going to do is try to plot where this is probably going to be most needed. And I'm going to try to hot glue this wire structure support to the back. So all I'm doing is kind of plotting on the outside where this is going to be, how it's going to go, clipping it accordingly. Fully expecting to screw up. Try to conform it a little bit to the internal curvature. Let's see how well it fits inside. Well then, part of the problem I foresee with this process is it looks like you probably have to kind of use the hot glue gun and tack certain parts of it down, then come back and really glue in the rest. Interesting idea. Be careful of that happening. That could be bad for your project. I'm going to go grab a pair of needle nose pliers. And also the bastard inside of me is going, stop screwing with it, just carve the damn thing on Halloween and don't mess around. Yeah, but this way I only have to carve it once. Forever. I can give it away as presents to people who will go, oh my god, you're awesome! And there's never anything wrong with that. Except those people who go, oh my god, you're a total nerd. Why do you waste all your time doing this? And those people aren't my friends. Wonder why. I am just going to tack this in place. Initial dot of glue. Trying for all the world to make sure my fingers don't get burnt. That's what hot glue seems to have been made for. Alright, there's the wire piece. Doesn't sit flat, so what I'm going to do is tack that spot. Well, you probably can't even see that spot, but I'm going to tack it again. Then I'm going to try to flatten the wire to it and then hot glue it all really well into place. I can see the glue cooling time being a little bit of a pain in the butt. And looking at it from the back, I'm looking for other spots where wire support might be incredibly handy. All I'm looking to do with the wire support is tack areas that are more rich in paper density to areas that are not. And that should help bolster the overall structure. The other problem I'm having so far is that once that wire is in whatever shape it's in, it doesn't really want to be manipulated once inside. Paper just isn't enough of a fulcrum to balance it against. So I am just going to over glue and tack it all in. Not even tack, I'm going to do a full-fledged glue drenching. Try to fuse the whole structure as much as possible. I have a feeling my smaller glue gun might be a better idea here. And back to it. I'm almost wondering if the hot glue itself is enough of a binding and strengthening agent. If the wire is totally unnecessary. So there is the wire, very firmly affixed by hot glue to the internal structures, and that outstretched hoof is not going anywhere anytime soon. My next area of concern is all these light flame ripples on this side. They're very, very thin. I'm going to try to strengthen them as well. I'm going to experiment with the wire, but if it proves totally fruitless, I may just use straight up hot glue and not screw around with it. Determine the wire's best shape. Try my best to mold it too. If you're going to try this yourself, mold the wire to the inner surface and not the outer surface. That last one I did was not a terribly great fit. It was serviceable, but definitely not perfect. And what I'm doing now is I'm just going to add some beads of hot glue on anywhere where I think this could use some extra structure, but the actual area is just too small to add a wire comfortably. So we're just adding some hot glue structure to the back of the design, anywhere where I'm worried that it's a little bit flimsy. And so far, I like what this is doing. Maybe it's not doing anything and it's just making me feel better, but that's something. Okay, so I have beaded the hell out of the inside. Don't know how well that is going to catch the light. Hopefully well enough. It's making some beautiful, cool little patterns on my screen here. But anywhere it looks structurally curious, I hot glued it. And anywhere that looked really structurally curious, we threw on a piece of wire. So that means we're back to paper clay, which is good because paper clay is awesome. The one potential risk that I do see with adding the hot glue is that during the sealing and waterproofing stage, it's best if your sealing and waterproofing material, the spar varnish or whatever the hell you happen to use, is able to soak into the paper a little bit. And if I have the paper covered with hot glue, I'm a little bit worried that it won't be able to soak in quite so well. But I will cross that bridge when I arrive there. In the meantime, I'm going to work on paper claying my outside. I plan on paper claying the internal design last, because I imagine that is going to give me, number one, the most headaches, and number two, the most opportunity for awesome creativity. Because where most of the Carve designs are strictly two-dimensional, I really anticipate I'm going to have to be, not have to be, but I'm going to have the ability to go full 3D with my Carve design. Which is something you normally only get from those folks who are super insane and just strip the skin off their pumpkins and use the entire extra, half-inch to inch of pumpkin gut as a 3D modeling material. Ugh, so jealous.